Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Mystery Science Theater 3000, episode 1204, The Day Time Ended. Every around Thanksgiving time, I try to review a different Mystery Science Theater episode that premiered on Thanksgiving. And since I've actually reviewed half of this season, just because of reasons that I'll get into, I guess, I figured I would review one of the episodes I have not reviewed of the Netflix years. Since I've reviewed most of the Jonah or Revival or whatever we're calling it past season 11, 12, 13, I figured I'd review one of the ones I didn't, and it was the Thanksgiving episode, and they're actually coming to Turkey Day this year, so it seems to all have worked out in a sense. So this did premiere on Thanksgiving with 6 full episodes of Mystery Science Theater on Netflix. I reviewed the previous 3. This is the 4th one. Maybe I'll get to the other ones at different Thanksgivings. This one is The Day Time Ended, which is a very weird cult B movie. And I think it's very indicative of the time of the 2010s that this was picked for a Mystery Science Theater episode. I think movie selection is very important, and this was maybe not the greatest choice. This is within the kind of gauntlet thing. We see Jonah is kind of like on in Deep 13, beginning with that thing with the tubes or whatever, and then he goes back. They have very good host segments. I actually think it's a pretty good Jonah Baron Hampton personality type episode. Actually, I don't think this is the funniest, and I think part of it is the movie is just kind of weird in just a weird way, not in a funny way. Like I heard like Carnival Magic and Cry Wilderness were big ones from the previous season, and I actually think Mac and Me, I don't think I gave it the greatest review or anything, but I do think it's like kind of ends up being a standout episode, or Atlantic Rim for me at least. This seems to be, some people rank this higher, I guess. I don't know. I think like it's sort of a strange movie because like family goes to this house in Arizona that's like the grandfather's house or something, and then like all this weird space stuff happens and it doesn't really make any sense, and it's odd, and it feels like a broader concept. I think one of the riffs was like this whole movie feels like the prelude to a Columbo episode, and it really does give that vibe, but also trying to do, it feels like sci-fi concepts that they at least felt were too big for that budget, and so it's just very confusing and weird, which like I don't know. I do think this is the time of like Alamo Drafthouse kind of picking cult movies and making them into bigger things, like Roar and stuff like that. I think sometimes they pick good ones, sometimes they pick ones where like I think like you have to be a real deep weird cinephile to get into, and I think this is like semi like this. You don't see like was it Munchie in season 13 was much better at getting the right movies. This is like, I think it's like a cool idea, and if you can really riff on it, none of the riffs made me laugh out loud. I did think the host segments, like the Invention Exchange, was funny. They had the spray on mustard thing, and the Invention Exchange was the fortune cookie, but it was a fortune meal. That was kind of funny. It was on, what do I think, watermelon. But the concept song was very good. I like that Growler and M. Waverly were more involved. Like I talked about those in the previous season 12 reviews, but it's nice seeing them come back in, I think, 2 host segments in this one. They're in a couple, which is cool. I like them as bots. The more of those 2, the better, honestly. And I like certain elements of this episode, and I think like you can really tell their chemistry as a crew was very tight at this point, where it's like even with Mike and the Bots or Joel and the Bots, like sometimes you'd watch an episode that's maybe not the funniest, but like their natural chemistry kind of gets you through it, and I felt that way a lot about this. I haven't watched this. I watched this when it came out. I never got to review it because it's just too much going on or whatever. Watching it again now, and I haven't watched too much of the Revival. Usually when it's on Pluto and I can pick, I honestly have picked more. I don't know why I either avoid the Netflix episodes. They're not on a lot. But I've watched season 13 again, and I've watched the old ones, and these, I haven't watched a lot of Jonah for whatever reason. And the quickness of jokes sometimes, like the insecurity, I guess Tina Fey does it as well, that joke style where it's like, you're just hitting you with joke, and there's sometimes where like they'll do a joke and then another one will do a joke right away, and it's like I haven't even gotten to process that or laugh at it. And it's like it feels like sometimes they're just filling space. And I get that, like, maybe it's like this season was co-directed by Rob Schraub, which I'm curious if that I do know they cut host segments, and it that might hurt this episode because your movie has to be very strong. And I feel like the other three of the movies were probably a lot stronger. This is kind of a weak, weird. This is just like this is a movie that's on at 4 a.m. and you're like fucked up and you like sit through it and think it's better, and then you watch it sober and you're like, Jesus, what the fuck was that? And like, which I'm sure most people who work on the movie felt too. Yeah, I don't know. This season for me, the problem with it is the first season came out in March and I had like a long time to catch up and do reviews of it and stuff. And because there are so many, no one was watching it once. But like the whole idea of this is they want the gauntlet, they want it to be the binge model. And I think like this is still a problem on Netflix where they're like so into like here's all this shit at once kind of thing. And like that is not Mystery Science Theater. Like it's like if I watch 2 episodes, that's 4 hours. Like no one's binging all of this season at once. That's like a huge commitment, and almost all the fan base is a lot older. No offense, but majority. We're on Facebook groups, so like obviously we're not like, we're not the coolest and youngest. They like overemphasize the art. Where like Mac and Me, I wanted to watch that, I did, but at the same time, it's like, well, with Mac and Me, that's one movie. You can do that, but like, what 6 episodes is 12 hours. You can't really do that Thanksgiving weekend, and it's Christmas, and like, I just think this is a bad time. 1 episode on Thanksgiving is one thing, but 6 is like, it seems like a good idea. But like I knew other people who like way less people covered and reviewed them. I couldn't keep up because I'm doing other movies and stuff. I'm not just shutting down, unfortunately, for Mystery Science Theater as much. And I have kids and stuff. It's just like it just wasn't happening. And I do think like this was a bad release date. I think Christmas, Thanksgiving, you really have to be a big thing to launch around that time because there's so much competition for time in terms of like, family stuff, seasonal stuff, just shopping in general, meals, party. Like there's so many things that like you can really like a media thing can just like, fall by the wayside because you're just like too inundated. And I think that's unfortunate. I would have liked this to have succeeded more. Obviously, it didn't work out with Netflix. And obviously, 6 episodes wasn't the greatest idea. I did always hear Mac and Me did very well. I don't know what the numbers are on that. I think like the other thing is, the one thing that season 13 did a lot better than this is like they're able to pick bad movies that I think were more closer to what bad movies were to like the internet and the bad movie world at large. I don't think like Munchie, I think, took off afterwards, and there are a ton of other Mystery Science Theater movies from season 13 I saw on other YouTubers and other places after that. I didn't see that with season 12. I did see it with season 11, and I think like you really just have to pick like the bad movie has to be entertaining and fun, and this just doesn't do that. It's weird. Like, why are these lights going on? Like this grizzled dad is there. Like, I don't understand. That was an odd concept. His son has a Prince Valiant haircut. Like this little girl is going through time and space or something, or is it? And then it's like, a heavy metal magazine or Genesis album, or I think they said Yes album cover at the end. It's just a very strange idea. I did have a good time watching this. I've watched others episodes that I like since I do watch the show semi-regularly. There's ones I've watched from any host that are way worse than this. This is not a bad episode. It just does not pop out at all. And it's very obvious, like, this is a bad movie choice. This is like a movie you think will be fun to riff, but like it's just not, because it's just too odd and strange and like in a just silent way. It's not as funny of a concept and stuff like that. I think the mockbuster thing, like Atlantic Rim, good idea. That's like, oh, haha. Like, I think they started off maybe too strong, and then they did an Abyss ripoff, and then like, I don't know, failed weird sci-fi concept thing with miniatures or something, and like the robot looks like half it's from Laser Blast, half it's from like somebody's failed sci-fi thing. There's another sci-fi MST3K episode I was thinking of, but I do think Jonah did a good job. The host segments rule. I was actually disappointed I didn't get more host segments, so I guess it like made me wanting more. I thought I did like Rob Schraub's direction in this and stuff like that. I like that Joel's whatever, the movie and the whole guy had a dog. That was fun. But like the gauntlet thing was a bad idea. No one's gonna binge all of these. It felt like this like ran out of steam just because we're all old and like trying to just like get through Thanksgiving and Christmas. I really wish they had just done like one and then premiered the rest later or week by week, which worked out a lot better from the last season than this. There's more immediacy to watch. This just felt like too much. And as for this episode specifically, it just felt like sort of a weird off episode. But I do think, if anything, and you want to say anything about Jonah and Hampton and Barron, they really got this to work a lot more than they probably should have. I think the over-riffing it was very evident in this in a few places, and like watching this in comparison to the show as a whole, it very much holds the season back, and it does feel like you know, this era of comedian, and like they have, just because you have the material, it doesn't mean you shouldn't shut the fuck up sometimes. And I don't think they adhered to that at all. But I did enjoy it. I did have a good time. I'm glad to have caught up with one of the season 12 episodes. And well, I've seen it before, but I actually reviewed it. I'm glad I got around to that. I don't think this is a standout of the newer episodes or anything, but I'm glad I did it. And, you know, I think it's like kind of one of those you're like, why the fuck did that happen? And I don't really have an answer. The one thing in the bigger, I think, MST3K thing, and I almost forgot, is J. Elvis Weinstein shows up in this one. Apparently, his two big things coming back to the show were in the episodes I didn't get to review. So I guess I get is he plays the character, I think, in the 6th episode I read. I haven't seen that. Or I've seen it, but it's been a while. Sorry, I haven't reviewed it. Let me say that correctly. It was cool seeing him come back. I know he isn't as remembered because he left after season 1, and I think the show got a lot bigger after, and most of our fandom is for like Frank and Trace and all that stuff. But it was nice seeing him come back, kind of get his return. It was a nice little segment there with him and Kinga. And the Kinga's mom is Kim Cattrall. I forgot about that. I like that because I saw her at an MST at the Mads are back thing. She was there, and I know she's still friends with Trace because it's all being friends. So I was like, you know what? I'm cool with that. But I like that part. And I like the J. Elvis Weinstein got a return. Everybody gets a return. And it's nice for that part of the fan base, as well as like a segment that like he often gets kind of maligned, and like he was a lot younger and people consider him not, you know, semi-annoying, I guess, and stuff. It was nice that he had like a nice return segment, seemed more grown up and chilled out. And I like that he was going to do the ashes of Frank and Trace or Dr. Forrester and stuff was nice. Forgot that his name is, I've seen some season 1, the return of Dr. Lawrence Arnhart. I've seen some of the KTMA in season 1. I haven't watched them as much as the others, but he's not as well known in the fan as in the whole MST3K thing. He deserves to get his own like return because he was part of the original crew, and he deserves. And I actually that part I very much liked. Sorry to almost said it at the end there. Anyway, I think this is sort of an average episode quality wise. The movie's really out there, but an average episode quality wise was put together very well by a cast that had their comedy chemistry tight enough at that point. I think they'd been on a tour, they'd done a season. You can tell that they knew what they were doing and they were precise on it. And I quite liked what they did here. It didn't make me laugh out loud, but it reminded me like parts I liked about them, and also reminded me of parts I didn't like, but it reminded me more of parts I did like. And I think this was a fine, decent episode of Mystery Science Theater. I don't know if it's definitely the one you're going to watch on Turkey Day, but it's the one I watched around Thanksgiving this year, and it's always nice to come back to Mystery Science Theater and talk about another Turkey Day episode around Turkey Day. And I think this is, you know, fine if you're watched a better episode before it and maybe after it, but you're not going to have the worst time with this one. So if you've seen Mystery Science Theater 3000, episode 1204, The Day Time Ended, and you'd like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Oh, also, I forgot to mention this. Sorry there's no clips in this. It's hard to get this episode ripped and stuff, and all the riding the high seas and stuff didn't get me very good quality copies. So the original ones of this didn't have any clips and stuff, so I'm just going to maintain that for this, and hopefully the lights don't annoy you too much. Anyway.